Welcome, welcome, and settle in. Let your shoulders lower just a little from wherever they have been holding themselves through the day. Let the pillow take the weight of your head. Let the blanket be as heavy or as light as you need it to be tonight. We are going to travel slowly to a place high in the mountains, a quiet place, a warm place, a place where the only work is patient and the only sounds are soft. You will not have to remember anything. You will not have to follow anything. If your attention drifts away from the words, that is well. If it drifts back again, that is well too. The story will keep going with or without you, the way snow keeps falling whether or not anyone is watching. Before we begin, take one long breath in and let it out slowly through slightly parted lips, and another, slower still, and a third, letting the exhale be longer than the inhale, the way a kettle sighs when it is taken off the heat. Feel the surface beneath you. Feel the way it holds you entirely without your having to do anything at all. Feel the small warmth gathered against your skin under the covers. Feel the cooler air on whatever part of you is uncovered, a hand perhaps, or the tip of your nose. And notice how the contrast is gentle, not sharp. The mountain we are going to is far away. It does not exist on any map you've seen. It is not urgent. It is not waiting for you. It has been there for a long time already, and it will still be there when this story ends, and it does not need anything from you. All you need to do is arrive. So let your eyes close, if they're not already closed. Let the room around you soften at the edges. Let the day you have had, whatever kind of day it was, lie down on the floor beside the bed and rest there like a coat you have taken off. You will not need it for a while. And now, gently, we begin. You are standing at the end of a long covered walkway, high on the shoulder of a mountain. The walkway is made of dark timber, silvered by weather, and its roof is pitched steeply so that snow slides off it in slow, soft folds and gathers deep and blue along the eaves. The floor beneath your feet is planked and worn, and it is warm. Warm because there's felt underfoot. Thick gray felt, patterned faintly with pine cones, and because the whole walkway is heated from below by a system of small tile stoves that no one has explained to you, but which hum distantly like a cat. The air is cold on your face, but not sharp. It has been sifted through the pines that grow far below, and it carries the scent of resin and of wood smoke and of something that might be old linen. You breathe it in. It settles into you. It is the blue hour. Not evening, not yet night. That patient interval between them when the sky above the peaks turns the color of a deep glass jar and the snow on the slopes takes on the same tint, so that everything, everywhere, is one long, slow gradient of blue. The peaks themselves are round-shouldered and gentle, like sleeping animals. They do not have jagged crowns. They have soft ones, mantled in white, and their slopes descend in easy curves toward a broad, shallow cirque where the sanatorium sits. The sanatorium is a long, low building of pale stone and darker wood. Its many windows are lit from within by lanterns that have already been trimmed for the evening. Some of the windows are frosted with old lace patterns of ice, and the light behind them is soft and honey-colored, muted by the frost, so that the whole building looks like a row of small, warm rooms, glowing side by side, patient in the blue. You are wearing felt slippers. You did not put them on. They were already on your feet when you arrived here, as though the mountain knew what you needed. over your wool clothing, you are wearing a long cardigan, and over that, a heavy shawl of undyed wool that has been folded double across your shoulders and pinned at the front with a plain wooden toggle. In one hand, you carry a small brass lantern with a paned glass sleeve, its candle burning steady. In the other, you carry a soft cloth bundle, a chamois, folded around a set of brass calipers, still cool. You have been given a task. It is not a difficult task. It is not, in fact, a task at all in the way most tasks are. It is a habit, a rhythm, a slow reception. You are to go to the western Solarium and measure the snow, not the whole snow, not the depth of it, not the weight of it, not the great blue blanket of it draped across the cirque. Only the individual snowflakes as they arrive, one at a time, one shape at a time. As long as the snow keeps arriving, you will keep receiving. You begin to walk. The walkway stretches ahead of you, curving very gradually to the left, following the contour of the mountain. On your right, a low balustrade of turned wood. Beyond it, the dark shapes of pine trees and the deep blue below. On your left, the outer wall of the sanatorium itself, panels of pine, oiled a long time ago, still faintly fragrant. Every so often, you pass a door, closed, with a small brass numeral above it and a coat hook beside it, and sometimes a pair of slippers left neatly outside, and sometimes a folded newspaper, and sometimes nothing at all. Your own footfalls make almost no sound. The felt under your slippers and the felt of the walkway floor meet in a hush. You are aware of your breathing. You are aware of the small clink of the calipers inside their cloth as your arm swings. You are aware of the tiny halo of light from your lantern moving with you along the pine wall, pooling briefly on each door as you pass. Somewhere far below, a bell chimes once, one long low note from a chapel down in the valley, so distant that the sound reaches you thinned and softened, more suggestion than sound. You do not count the chime. You do not know what hour it marks. Time in the sanatorium is not measured that way. Time in the sanatorium is measured in flakes. You come to a place where the walkway widens into a small square vestibule. Here, 4 passages meet. The one you have come from, one that leads deeper into the main building, one that turns off toward the older wing, and one, the westernmost, that ends in a broad glass door held closed by a wooden latch. Above the door, painted in a plain hand on a small pine plaque, are the words, Western Solarium. But before you go in, you turn instead toward the main building, because there's something you must do first. You must warm the calipers. You cross the vestibule and pass through a low arched doorway into a room that has become, over many years, the informal heart of the auditor's quarter. It is not large. It is not grand. It is a room of pine panels and low beams, and its warmth arrives from a great tile stove that stands in one corner. A tall stove of pale green tiles, each tile faintly patterned with a mountain flower, its cast iron door glowing gently at its lower seam. The stove is not roaring. It is only murmuring, keeping the room at that particular quiet warmth that makes you feel as though you have just come home. On top of the tile stove, folded neatly in stacks, are the wool blankets that the auditors carry with them on their rounds. Thick wool blankets, striped in soft ochres and grays, warmed all evening long, so that when they are wrapped around shoulders, they release a slow, steady warmth for hours. The The scent of warm wool fills the room and mixes with the pine of the walls, and with the faint, distant camphor drifting from the linen cupboards further down the corridor. You go to the stove and set your lantern on a small side table. You unfold the chamois. Inside, laid in a shallow groove, are the brass calipers, polished, precise, cold to the touch. You lift them and you place them very gently on the small warm plate beside the top of the stove, not on the hottest part, only on the warm edge. Cold brass, they say, misreads a snowflake. Warm brass, only slightly warm, receives it faithfully. While the calipers warm, you turn to the samovar. The samovar stands on a low sideboard, brass and copper, tall and round-bellied, its little chimney trailing a very fine thread of steam. It has been simmering all afternoon, and it will simmer all night, and no one remembers a time when it was not simmering. Around its base are set small clay cups, each one the size of half an apple, and a wooden bowl of dried linden flowers, and another of raspberry leaves, and a tin of the strong black tea concentrate that the auditors drink diluted with hot water, and a whisper of honey. You draw a cup. You add a little of the black concentrate. You add hot water from the samovar's spigot. You add half a spoon of honey. You do not add anything else. The cup warms your hands through the clay. You lift it and breathe in the steam, and the steam is dark and sweet and slightly floral, and you feel your shoulders lower another fraction. You take one sip, then another. You set the cup down on the sideboard, where a small tile has been placed for exactly this purpose, and you turn back to the stove. The calipers are ready. You wrap them again in the chamois and tuck the little bundle into the inner pocket of your cardigan, where they will stay just warm enough. You take one of the ochre and gray blankets from the stack on the stove, the third one from the top, which is your favorite, though you could not say why, and you drape it around your shoulders, over the shawl, and you feel the warmth of the tile stove come with you as you go. You pick up your lantern. You take the cup of tea. You cross the room slowly and step out again into the vestibule, and you turn now toward the glass door of the western solarium. The wooden latch is smooth and warm. You lift it. The door opens inward with the faintest sigh, and you step through. The western solarium is a long room with a glass roof and glass walls on 3 sides. In summer, it is used for reading and for the taking of tea, and its glass roof is opened partway to let in the Alpine air. In winter, in the season of snow, its glass roof is closed, but not curtained, and the room becomes a place of receiving. Along its western wall, a low stone bench runs the whole length of the solarium, and set into this bench at even intervals are broad copper trays, 6 of them, each polished to a soft pink gold, each tilted very slightly so that snow, when it collects, does not pile but rests. But the copper trays are not where the snow is measured. The copper trays are only for the settling snow, the ordinary drift, the background snow that fills the trays over the course of the night and is later tipped, together, into the sanatorium's slow record of accumulated weight. The measured snow, the audited snow, is caught elsewhere. At the center of the solarium stands a long wooden table, and above the table hangs a wide framed opening in the glass roof, a hatch, held ajar tonight at just the correct angle by a delicate system of ropes and pulleys. Through this opening, And only through this opening, the snow enters the solarium and drifts down to the table. And on the table, set out in a neat row, are the slates. 6 slates, black and clean, each the size of a small book, each mounted on its own little stand so that its surface tilts up toward the opening. Beside each slate, a soft brush of goat hair. Beside each brush, a paper card, and a stub of white chalk, and an inkwell of the palest gray ink, and a nib pen with a wooden handle worn smooth. And at the head of the table, on its own small platform, the dictaphone. You have used the dictaphone many times, but you look at it now as though for the first time. It is a beautiful old thing, a brass horn curved like a lily, mounted on a wooden base. Inside the base, a wax cylinder, ready to be turned by hand. Beside the horn, a small mouthpiece of hard rubber, which you speak into softly, very softly. The dictaphone does not require volume. It only requires care. You set your lantern down on a hook by the door, where it joins 2 others already burning, and the light in the solarium becomes just enough. Enough to see, not enough to blur the eyes, enough for the snow. You set your teacup on a small side shelf. You unwrap the calipers and lay them, warmed, on their velvet cloth beside the 3rd slate, which is the one you have been assigned tonight. You look up. Through the glass roof, through the softly slanted opening at its center, you can see the blue sky darkening slowly to indigo. The first flakes are beginning to fall. They arrive one at a time. That is the character of this snow. It is not a storm. It is not even yet a real snowfall. It is a slow, scattered arrival, as though the sky is testing something, as though it is remembering how. The flakes drift down, wander sideways, correct themselves, and eventually, some of them, only some, pass through the opening in the roof and settle on the table. You wait. One flake lands at last on the slate beside you. You lean down. You look. It is a plain flake, a simple 6-pointed star with narrow arms and only the smallest side branches. It is the kind of flake that some auditors might have been tempted, once, long ago, to dismiss, to sweep from the slate with the goat hairbrush before it had been fully seen. But the rule of the house is that no snowflake, however plain, is dismissed. So, you look at it. You look at it for as long as looking asks. You take up the calipers. You do not touch the flake with them. You only bring them near, and you read the width of it from arm tip to arm tip. You murmur the reading to yourself. Then you set the calipers down. You lift the little rubber mouthpiece of the dictaphone. You turn the small handle at the side of the wooden base once to start the wax cylinder. You bring the mouthpiece close to your lips and you speak. 3rd slate, you say. 1st flake of the evening. 6 points. Narrow arms. Small side branches at the base of each arm. Symmetry good. Width, 1 1/4 units. Plates, none. Character, unhurried. You lower the mouthpiece. You stop the cylinder. The flake on the slate has already begun to fade, because the slate is only just cool enough to receive it and not cold enough to preserve it. That is well. That is the way. Each flake is received, and each flake is released. Only the record remains. You lift the brush of goat hair. You sweep very softly across the slate. The slate is clean. You set the brush down. Then you turn to the little wooden card, and you write on it, with the pen, in the pale gray ink, in your smallest and quietest handwriting, a single line. 3rd slate, 1st, plain 6-point, unhurried. You blot it. You slide the card into the drawer at the head of the table, marked with your own initials. and beside the initials, the date, which you do not need to check, because it is the same date it has been for hours, and will be for hours more. You straighten. You take up your teacup. You take one small sip. The tea is warm still. The linden flavor is deeper now than when you first poured it, softened by time. You look up at the opening in the roof. Another flake is coming down. You settle back to your patient waiting. Some minutes pass. You could not say how many. Time in the solarium is not measured in minutes, any more than time in the corridors is measured in bells. Time is measured in flakes. And tonight, at this hour, the flakes are still few and slow. The second flake to land on your slate is more elaborate than the first. It has broader arms, and each arm carries a small plate near its tip, a hexagonal plate, delicate as a pressed leaf. You lean close. You breathe carefully to one side, because breath is warm, and warmth is unkind to snowflakes. You bring the calipers near. You murmur the width. You lift the mouthpiece. You speak. Third slate, second flake. 6 points. Broad arms. One plate at each tip, hexagonal. Symmetry excellent. Width, 1 3/4. Character, ornamented but restful. You blot the card. You slide it into the drawer. You brush the slate. You sit again. Somewhere far off in the building, you can hear the older auditors murmuring. Their voices reach you thin and low, coming through 3 closed doors and a length of pine corridor, and you cannot make out any word, only the shape of murmuring, the fact of it. It is comforting. It is the sound of others doing exactly what you are doing, in rooms you cannot see. You do not feel alone. You never feel alone here. You only feel quiet, and being quiet with others is its own kind of company. Outside, the snow is beginning to thicken. Not much, not yet, but you can see through the glass walls of the solarium that the flakes are more numerous now, drifting down in a slow, patterned way, as though someone has begun to shake a very soft sieve high above the mountain. On the copper trays along the western wall, the accumulation has begun. There is now the barest dusting on each, enough that when you glance over, the pink gold color is muted by white, like sugar on a plate of biscuits. The copper trays make a sound sometimes, not from the falling snow. The snow is too soft to be heard on copper. They make a sound when they cool. As the evening deepens and the last warmth of the day leaves the metal, the trays contract very slightly, and each contraction produces a small tick. Tick. And later, another. Tick. They are old copper trays. They have been ticking on winter evenings for a very long time. It is a sound the sanatorium loves. You take another sip of tea. At the far end of the solarium, on a low wooden chest set against the interior wall, there is a folded eiderdown of red and white cotton, and on the eiderdown, arranged in the loose curve that only a well-settled cat can achieve, is the Tortoiseshell Cat. She was there when you came in. She did not look up when you entered. She has not moved since. She is asleep, or nearly so, her small chin tucked into the crook of one paw, her ribs rising and falling with a slow rhythm you can see from all the way across the room. She is the color of tortoiseshell, deep amber and darker brown, and a little cream at the throat, and her fur, in the lantern light, looks like polished wood. You will visit her presently. Not yet. Not while the third flake has not yet arrived. You wait. You breathe. The third flake arrives. It is a curious one. a broken flake, or perhaps two flakes that met in the air and stuck. It is not symmetrical. It is not tidy. It is odd. Under the rule of the house, this is not a problem. Odd flakes are still flakes. Broken flakes are still flakes. You measure it as it is. Third slate, third flake, you murmur into the horn. Compound structure, 6 point plus 3 point, joined at one arm. Symmetry, none. Width across greatest span, 2 units. Character, agreeable and irregular. You write the card, you slide it in, you brush the slate, you sit. Now you rise. You leave the calipers on their velvet cloth. You do not need to worry about them. Nothing will disturb them. You cross the solarium slowly, felt slippers making almost no sound, blanket warm around your shoulders. You come to the cat. You crouch beside the eiderdown. You do not speak. You extend one hand slowly, palm down, and you rest the back of your fingers lightly against the cat's flank. She is very warm, warmer than you had expected. Beneath the fur, you can feel the small, even engine of her breathing and the slow throb of her heart. She does not wake. Her ear twitches once in acknowledgement, and then she slides deeper into sleep. You let your hand rest there for a long moment. You feel your own breathing settle to something closer to hers, slower, deeper, without effort. After a while, you could not say how long, you rise again and return to your slate. Another flake has come while you were gone. It rests on the slate, waiting for you, patient as everything else here. You measure it. You describe it. You write the card. You brush the slate. You sit. Time thickens. So does the snow. By some hour that you cannot name, the flakes are arriving more regularly, and you are settled into the long, steady rhythm of your work. Each flake receives its due. Each card is written, blotted, filed. Each slate, when brushed, resets to black. The dictaphone's wax cylinder turns and stops and turns again under your careful hand. Your voice is small and even, hardly louder than a whisper, and the horn takes each phrase and stores it away like a sleeping bee tucked into a comb. Between flakes, you drink your tea in slow sips until the cup is empty. You do not refill it yet. You will refill it presently. There's no hurry. Between flakes, you look up through the glass roof and watch the snow coming down. Between flakes, you glance at the copper trays and see them growing softer, whiter, quieter. Between flakes, you listen to the murmur of the older auditors 3 rooms away, and to the soft ticking of the copper as it settles. Between flakes, sometimes, you close your eyes for a moment. You do not fall asleep. You only rest your eyes. It is permitted. It is expected. The rule of the house is that the auditor must be soft, and softness cannot be maintained by staring. You open your eyes. Another flake has arrived. This one is a rare one. You know it as soon as you lean close. It has 12 points, the twin flake formation, in which 2 6-pointed stars have grown fused at the center, offset by a small angle, producing a shape like a slow, patient explosion of ice. The arms are long. The plates are many. It is the kind of flake that the master auditor would have wanted to see if the master auditor were here. The master auditor is not here. The master auditor is on the eastern side of the sanatorium, tending an entirely different set of slates, and will not come to the western solarium tonight, so the flake is yours to receive. You take your time. Third slate, you murmur, at last, into the horn. Fourth flake of the evening, and remarkable. Twin formation, 12 points. 2 stars fused at center, offset by an 8th turn. Arms long, narrow, with 2 plates each. Symmetry, mirrored. Width, 3.5 units. Character, you pause, considering. Generous. You lower the mouthpiece. You take up the pen. You write the card in your careful handwriting. Twin, 12-point, generous. And this card, because it is a rare card, you place not in the ordinary drawer, but in the small side drawer marked notable. You slide it in. You brush the slate. The flake is gone. Only the record remains. Only the record ever remains. You rise. It is time to refill the samovar. You take up your lantern from the hook by the door. You leave the calipers and the dictaphone as they are. You step out of the western solarium, back into the vestibule. And the vestibule is cooler now than when you came in. The day's last warmth has drained fully out of the stone. But it does not chill you, because the blanket on your shoulders is doing exactly what it was warmed to do. You cross the vestibule and re-enter the auditor's room, and the tile stove greets you with its steady, small warmth. And you feel your face relax the moment you cross the threshold. You did not know your face had gone tight until it softens. You go to the samovar. You draw a fresh cup, a little more of the black concentrate this time, and a little less honey, because your mouth wants something a shade darker. You add hot water. You stir it once, with a small wooden spoon left on the sideboard for that purpose. You lift the cup and breathe in. And then, because the samovar itself is running low, it always is at this hour, you tend to it. There's a copper kettle already filled and standing on a warm hob beside the stove. You lift it carefully and pour its water into the samovar's top reservoir, and steam rises, and you close the lid, and you place the empty copper kettle at the pump in the corner and pump it full again for the next auditor. You take a small handful of pine cones from the wicker basket by the stove and feed them, one at a time, into the samovar's small firebox at its base. They catch quickly, releasing a sudden burst of resinous scent, and then settle to a steady, small burn. The samovar sighs. Its simmer deepens. All is well. You linger a moment by the stove. You extend your hands toward it. You feel the heat climbing up your palms, over your wrists, along the underside of your forearms. You turn your hands and let the heat climb the backs of them. You breathe. You feel the wool blanket warm through against your back, refreshed by proximity to the stove. From the linen cupboard down the corridor, the camphor smell drifts faintly toward you. It is not a strong smell. It is the ghost of camphor, the memory of it, tucked deep among old linens that have been folded and unfolded for many winters. It smells the way a grandmother's cupboard smells. Not the grandmother you may or may not have had, but the idea of one, the shared cupboard of the world. You take your cup. You take your lantern. You go back to the solarium. Between the auditor's room and the vestibule, and between the vestibule and the solarium, you pass, this time, one of the older auditors, a small, round person in a long gray robe, their felt slippers making no sound, their own lantern held low, a bundle of blank cards tucked under one arm. They do not speak. You do not speak. They nod once without breaking their gait. You nod once without breaking yours. They pass. They're gone. The corridor holds their absence for a moment and then closes around it, softly. You enter the solarium again. The cat has not moved. The dictaphone is where you left it. The calipers are exactly where you set them down. The slates are patient. Above, through the opening in the roof, the snow is falling more thickly now, and the air in the solarium is a fraction cooler than it was, and the copper trays along the western wall are noticeably whiter. You set down your cup on the little side shelf. You take up your position at the third slate. You wait for the next flake. It comes. You measure it. You describe it. You file the card. You brush the slate. It comes again. Another one. And another. The rhythm settles into you now more deeply than before. There is no longer any effort in it. Your hands know the calipers. Your voice knows the phrases. Your fingers know the drawer. Your breath knows the pace. You have become part of the sanatorium's slow machinery of attentiveness, and the machinery holds you, and you rest inside it, working without weight. Time thickens further. You do not notice at first when the snow begins to be truly heavy. It happens by degrees, the way many things at the sanatorium happen. The flakes arrive faster and closer together, and the opening in the roof frames a sky that is no longer indigo, but a deep, near black blue, with only the faintest silver from a moon somewhere behind cloud. The copper trays are no longer dusted. They are covered. The pink gold has vanished under a soft white blanket, and each tray has, of its own accord, begun to release small, hushed sighs of settling snow at its edges, where the accumulation exceeds the tilt. The lanterns, sensing the deeper dark, dim themselves. This is not a metaphor. The lanterns at the sanatorium are made with small, clever wicks that lower automatically as the evening deepens, so that no one is ever surprised by brightness. The light in the solarium is now the color of a very old ivory, warm and mellow, and it reaches only a little way from each flame before it softens into shadow. You measure another flake. You describe it. You file it. You brush. You realize, slowly, that you are hungry. Not sharply, not urgently, but pleasantly, in the way that suggests a small, warm bowl of something would be welcome. And as if the sanatorium has heard the thought, a small wooden hatch in the interior wall of the solarium slides open, and behind it appears a shallow tray, and on the tray is a bowl. You go to the hatch. You lift the tray with both hands. It is warm. You carry it to the auditor's chair at the head of the long table, the chair reserved for pauses, and you set the tray down and sit. The bowl is glazed a soft cream color, and inside it is a thick broth, barley, and root vegetables cut small, and something green that might be a leaf of dried nettle, and a slow, round scent that suggests a bay leaf has spent a long afternoon in the pot. Beside the bowl is a wooden spoon, and a small slice of dark bread on a wooden plate, and a saucer with a knob of pale butter, and a little dish of coarse salt. You take up the spoon. You eat slowly, not because you have been told to, but because the broth invites it. The barley is soft. The vegetables have surrendered their edges. The broth itself is not thick, but it coats the spoon and warms your throat and sinks into your chest as if it has been waiting all day to arrive there. You take a bit of bread. You spread a very small amount of butter. You take a tiny pinch of salt. You eat. Between spoonfuls, you look up at the falling snow. Between mouthfuls of bread, you glance across at the sleeping cat. Between sips of broth, because a portion of the broth is thin enough to sip, you listen to the copper trays, ticking softly along the wall, and to the murmur of the older auditors, and to the very low simmer of the Samovar, which you can just hear from beyond the vestibule. You finish the broth. You do not finish the bread. you set the last small piece on the plate, and you take one last careful sip from the bottom of the bowl, tilting it, and then you set the spoon down. You do not clear the tray. The tray will be taken later by someone whose task tonight is the taking of trays. You do not need to think about them. They do not need to think about you. Each task in the sanatorium belongs to someone, and each person is trusted to their task, and the whole enormous slow web of it holds together without any single person straining anywhere. You return to your slate. The next flake is already there. You measure, you describe, you file, you brush, measure, describe, file, brush. The rhythm has become an underlayer to everything else in your evening. It runs beneath your breath and beneath your heartbeat. It is a rhythm your body can now do while your mind wanders quietly among small, pleasant things. The memory of the warm blanket on the stove, the color of the tortoiseshell cat's fur, the taste of the barley in the broth, the way the pine walls smell when you press your palm against them, the tiny, bright edge of ice around one particular pane of the glass roof. Every so often, you rise, refill your tea, feed a pine cone to the Samovar, warm your hands, and return. Every so often, you cross to the cat and rest your fingers against her flank, and every time her ear twitches in acknowledgement, and every time she does not wake, and every time your breathing slows a fraction more when you return to your seat. The registers on their shelves against the interior wall grow heavier through the evening. You cannot see this happening exactly, but you know it. Each card you file into your drawer adds a very small amount of weight to the world's slow catalog of tonight's snow. By morning, when the day auditor comes to take up the count, the drawers will be plumper by an inch or so, and the registers on the shelves will accept the night's cards in the morning transfer, and each register will be a little thicker, and the row of registers will be a little longer, and no one, anywhere, will be in a hurry about any of it. The velvet covers of the registers gleam softly in the lantern light. They are deep colors, deep blue, deep green, deep wine, and their velvet nap catches the light in slow shifting patches, so that when you glance at the shelves, the row of registers looks almost like a landscape at dusk, rounded hills of velvet, small, quiet valleys between them. You measure another flake, you describe it, you file it, you brush. A tick from a copper tray, a distant chime from the valley bell, one note, then silence. A soft breath from the sleeping cat, a murmur from 3 rooms away, a settling of pine cone in the Samovar's firebox, somewhere behind you. Another flake. You measure, you describe, you file, you brush. You begin to feel not tired, exactly. Not tired in the way daytime hours make you tired, but softened, loosened, as though the small clasps that held you together during the day have quietly opened, one after another, and you are now hanging in a state of gentle undoing. This is well. This is the state the sanatorium is designed to produce. This is the state, in fact, that the sanatorium believes is the true form of a person, the daytime form being only a temporary tightening, a necessary tension that must be released again and again, so that the person may be at last themselves. You measure another flake. You describe it. You file it. You brush. You realize that you have not, in some time, looked at the clock. There is a clock, high on the interior wall of the solarium, a plain, round face, brass numerals, brass hands. It is running. It has been running the whole time, but it has not asked anything of you, and you have not asked anything of it. And now, glancing up, you see that it says an hour you do not particularly remember agreeing to, and you find that you do not mind. The night is deep now. Snow falls, copper ticks, cat breathes, samovar simmers, blanket warms, lantern lowers, register waits, slate resets, flake arrives, flake arrives, flake arrives. You cross once more to the tortoiseshell cat. You crouch beside her. You lay your hand against her small, warm side, and this time she stirs, only a little, and turns her head, and blinks at you with slow amber eyes, and gives one long, low, unhurried purr, and closes her eyes again. The purr continues for a moment after her eyes have closed, and then it slows, and then it becomes only breathing, and then even the breathing is softer. You stay beside her longer than you meant to. When you rise, you go not to your slate, but to the tall window at the end of the solarium, and you stand there for a long time and simply look. The valley below is dim and blue and mostly hidden by snow, and the small lights of the village far down there are indistinct, smudges of gold that could be windows or could be reflections on ice. Above, the near ridges of the mountain are washed with white, and above them, the sky is close and heavy and full of coming snow. You breathe on the glass softly. A patch of fog appears. It shrinks and clears. You breathe again. Again, the fog. Again, the clearing. You turn away from the window. You return to your slate. A flake is waiting. You measure it. You describe it. You file it. You brush. Now the older auditors, 3 rooms away, have grown even quieter. Their murmuring has thinned to the occasional word. You cannot hear the word. You never could. But the pattern of their voices has slowed, and the pauses between phrases have lengthened. And you know, without needing to be told, that they too are approaching the softest hour of the shift. At the sanatorium, the softest hour is not the middle of the night. It is not the hour before dawn. It is a moving hour, private to each auditor, when the shift itself becomes so quiet that the auditor is scarcely there. It is the hour when the work does itself. It is the hour when the flakes are measured almost before you reach for them. It is the hour when you are no longer sure whether you are describing the snow into the dictaphone or whether the dictaphone is remembering the snow along with you. You are, perhaps, in your softest hour now. You measure, you describe, you file, you brush. The lantern above your slate lowers itself another notch. Your face becomes half light and half shadow. Your hands, moving small, seem to belong to someone very calm. Somewhere in the corridor behind you, the tray with your empty bowl is silently taken. Somewhere further off, in the linen cupboard, a bundle of freshly camphored sheets settles by one thread. Somewhere further off still, in the eastern solarium, the master auditor pauses to write a card, blot it, and set it into a drawer marked notable, and their hand moves in exactly the same slow rhythm as yours, and neither of you knows about the other, and both of you belong to the same slow evening. You measure, you describe, you file, you brush. At some point, you could not say when, you notice that your eyes are wanting to close for longer than a moment. This is permitted. The rule of the house says, the auditor rests as required. If the flakes accumulate on the slate while the auditor rests, they will be measured in aggregate later as part of the tray count, and no harm will come to the record. You take your blanket from your shoulders and lay it, doubled, on the seat of the auditor's chair. You take a second blanket from the folded stack by the door of the solarium. This one warmed earlier and still faintly warm, and drape it across your lap as you sit. You lean back. Your head finds the small headrest that the chair provides, padded with a cushion of raw wool and covered in soft linen. You do not stop exactly. You keep receiving. But the receiving is now the slow receiving of a person on the far edge of waking, and the flakes are coming to you as much in your mind as on the slate. You breathe. Copper ticks softly along the western wall. The Samovar simmers far away past the vestibule. The cat breathes on her eiderdown. The lanterns dim. Another quiet notch. The blue dusk through the frosted glass has become a deeper blue, almost black, with a slow, gentle silvering wherever the moon reaches. The camphor smell from the linen cupboards drifts, faint as a memory of a memory. The pine walls release their resin. The wool blanket, warmed on the tile stove, releases its warmth into your lap in patient waves. A snowflake clicks onto the slate. You register it without opening your eyes. 6 points. Small, plain, unhurried. Yours to receive later. Or perhaps not. Perhaps this one will be counted in the tray count. Perhaps this one is only for the slate to know. The velvet covers of the registers glow softly in the low light. The row of them, along the shelf, looks more than ever like small, rounded hills at dusk. Dark blue, dark green, dark wine. You breathe in. You breathe out. Longer. The murmuring 3 rooms away has ceased. Or perhaps it has only softened past the point where you can hear it. It does not matter. The other auditors are well. They are always well. The sanatorium holds them as it holds you. The copper ticks. The samovar simmers. The cat breathes. The snow falls. You are warm. You are held. You have work, and the work is quiet, and the work is done as it comes, and the work forgives you every pause. You do not have to finish anything tonight. Nothing tonight has to be finished. The snow will keep arriving whether you measure it or not, and the trays will keep the count you do not keep. And morning is a long way away, and morning will be gentle when it comes. You breathe in, you breathe out. Copper, samovar, cat, snow, warm blanket, warm brass, warm cup, warm room, blue glass, blue dusk, blue registers softening in the lantern light, pine, camphor, linden, bread. The slate resets. The card slides in. The brush passes softly across. The lantern lowers itself another slow notch, and then another, until it is only the smallest tender flame. The cat breathes. The copper ticks. You do not need to measure the next flake. You do not need to measure any flake. Someone else, softer even than you, is already receiving them, and their handwriting is very small, and their voice into the horn is barely a breath, and their brush across the slate is more suggestion than motion, and they are so patient that they are almost not there at all, and the slate is happy with them. You let your shoulders lower. You let your hands rest. You let the blanket be as heavy as it wants to be. You are here. You are held. You are quiet. The snow falls. The copper ticks. The samovar simmers. The cat breathes. You breathe. Slower now, and slower. The lantern lowers. The room softens. The mountain holds the sanatorium, and the sanatorium holds the solarium, and the solarium holds the slate, and the slate holds nothing at all, because the flake has already faded, and only the record remains. And even the record is patient, and the drawer is closed, and the drawer is warm. You are here, you are warm, you are held. Snow, copper, Samovar, cat. Rest now. Rest, rest, and let the snow keep falling without you, and let the copper keep ticking without you, and let the Samovar keep simmering without you, and let the cat keep breathing without you, and let the lantern lower itself the last small notch, and let sleep come softly, the way the snowflakes come, one, and then another, and then another, and each one welcome, and each one enough, and none of them hurried, and you are here, and you are warm, and you are held. Good night.